Good evening, this is the Finance Committee meeting and it's 5 o'clock on November 4th, 2024. Call to order, roll call, Vice Chair Maddox,
Here.
Member Posh, and Chair Gail Larson. I also have at the table President of Council Tony Kuda and Council Member Jim Petrus. Frank Ford was coming tonight, so I can commit to you that we can go through this fairly quickly. Would that be helpful?
Yeah, that's fine.
There he is.
Hello.
Hey, Frank. Frank Ford has just
And
arrived.
I've got a contingency, so
Okay.
Hey.
Hi. We just started the meeting, right? Okay. We are open for discussion. The first item I wanted to start to finish up with today is to finalize the scope of work so that we can order a data analysis. I don't know how we do that, but hopefully Frank will help us with that. To establish lender activity for underserved majority Black neighborhoods in Cleveland Heights. Last time we met, we got through the Cuyahoga County Mortgage Lending Report that you so graciously shared with us, Frank. And we utilized the scope of research, which I've got up here on this page, page 6, from that report as a general basis for discussion. Our request would be a data analysis specific to Cleveland Heights, and the 2024 Cleveland Heights Western Land Conservancy Survey is now available for you for data analysis. Yeah, so yeah. I have had a little bit of issues working with it, but it is out there, so administration could help us with that.
Does that mean it's available as an Excel file?
I do not know. I will find that out.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we have a PowerPoint though, right? That's what the format it came in, right, was a PowerPoint.
Well, Frank's talking about using the database to query.
Okay,
And the Excel spreadsheet would help him build that.
right. No, I get that.
Yeah.
And I wonder if they do have that, I don't know.
Yeah, so I will find that out, Frank.
Somebody, I'm sure, does have it. Western Reserve Land Conservancy
That's all.
certainly has it.
Yeah. And Councilor Maddox, we talked last time about establishing our neighborhoods. I had an epiphany, and maybe this makes sense,
okay.
and you can corroborate, that if we build the query on Cleveland Heights residents and then pick the zip codes from that area that we're looking at, 44112, 44121, 44106. Is there another one or are those?
44118,
Yep, that's the last one.
44118
that's it.
for, okay. Because we'd be most interested in the low to moderate income neighborhoods. So what we
Yeah,
query
that's
on.
still gonna take you, yeah, that'll take you into 44118 something.
Okay.
And
Okay,
yeah, it's interesting how that,
so
yeah, cause
if we-
44121 just Cleveland Heights, South Euclid, or, yeah, that's it.
but if we specify Cleveland neighborhoods, then it should,
Yeah.
right, pull it
Pull it
out.
right out.
And you did say 44112, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a lot, but it's some.
So does that help us in terms of?
No, not really. Because the home mortgage disclosure data doesn't have a zip code indicator.
That's true.
The Western Reserve Land Conservancy surveys that they've done in the past, I don't recall ever had a zip code indicator. They would have census tracts. So somebody would have to
Break it down.
take the zip codes and create a list of census tracts and then create a way to identify, pull out the data that's associated. Let's just say it's 12 census tracts for the sake of discussion. I mean, who could do this is Case Western Reserve.
Okay.
Possibly the Land Conservancy could do it. It's beyond my ability to do that. Well, I think it is, actually. Given enough time, I might be able to do it, but it wouldn't be the most efficient thing. But if those 12 census tracts could all be, imagine a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet where there's a new column that's low mod Cleveland Heights, and there's a 1 next to every census tract that are those 12. Next to all the data, whether it's the home mortgage lending data or the survey data. That could be done, but it's not something, the amount of hours I would have to spend doing that wouldn't really be efficient.
Yeah, that's extensive.
Okay.
But let's not, I would think it's probably pretty important to you though.
Yes, it is. And welcome, Councillor Posh. Welcome home as well.
There might be another, let me think out loud here for a minute. So let's separate out the survey data for a minute. In the home mortgage data, every loan record does have an indicator as to the income of the borrower, applicant. It also, so that's certainly a way, I mean, there are two ways to look at loans and access to loans for low, moderate income people. One is to the people and the other is to the geography where people tend to live. That you're saying, so you've got low mod, generally census tracts. The easier thing would be to identify low mod borrowers who happen to be in Cleveland Heights.
Okay.
And they probably would be in those census tracts, but they wouldn't necessarily.
Yeah, to your point,
Yeah.
I actually think your data will be more accurate that way. You'll pick up some folks who might be on the margins, and I think it'll help clarify that. That's a great idea because the other data could change based on where I bought that house, where I'm purchasing it, but my income is going to remain the same on that data. So that's absolute because that's how we would track it anyway on the financial side. If we're going to report this back to the feds for any specific reason or for a municipality who wanted to know, we would pull up that information based on those income and those borrowers, not by the zip code. So that makes a lot of sense.
Ideally, it would be best to have it both ways. And I actually been thinking that the next time I do this research broadly for Cuyahoga County, I was thinking I would ask Case Western to help me identify not just the low moderate income individuals, but what are the census tracts that would be, I mean, this could benefit you, but I don't know when I'm going to do that. Of course, we could decide that I'm going to do that for you first, and that would be a test of that. I have to say that it would be advantageous for you, I think, to be able to look at that both ways. Well, let me ask this more preliminary question. My phone was left on. It's bad form.
Is that a question?
Not yet. Hold on a second. Okay. So the study that I did for Cuyahoga County Council, I think I did give it to you, right? Oh, and you've got it up there, maybe. Did other people, do they have it?
Yep.
In a sense, or you could view it as a menu. I mean, you can look through all that. There's 150 pages, and it isn't all charts and graphs, but I'm guessing that there must be close to half of it. So let's say just throw out a number, 75 of them are charts and graphs. You could look at that and say, what do we want that is Cleveland Heights oriented, that is that? Which of those do you want? Have you done that by any chance? I should have asked you to do that, and I didn't think of it.
I thought that's kind of what we did last time.
Did we actually? Okay, and do you have a list of that? Maybe
Yeah.
sorry that
I took notes.
some of it I actually provided you already, didn't I?
Yes, and then you provided us with the preliminary report, and I've sent this to the committee members, but not out any further than that because it did say not for distribution. So
Which one? But the more recent one I sent you is the final one. Didn't I send you?
the Cuyahoga County.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That supersedes whatever had the word preliminary in front of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
'Cause you did give us some data that's home mortgage lending 21 to 22, median home sale price 23 for the city of Cleveland Heights.
Right. I gave you maybe a half dozen, 6 or 8 different
slides.
things.
Yeah.
And that's probably not the exclusive list of things, because it didn't include low mod.
Right.
Because at the time, I had no way of identifying what was low mod exclusive to Cleveland Heights.
Yeah.
I still don't right at this moment. But it does sound like that's something, whether it's low mod geographies or low mod into borrowers, I do think, ideally both would benefit you, but can I ask another question? My organization, I've had a couple discussions with them, and they say that there is a contract, it may even be in effect, which specified $5,000 worth of research on mortgage lending, which is for starting in 2025. Is that when that starts?
I didn't know the amount, but
January?
Brian Iorio
Yeah,
said
Brian.
it was for the contract that is bridges 24 to 25, so I would imagine that would be effective in January of 25.
Okay, and 5,000 was the amount that I was told.
Okay, well,
Is that the amount we are all working on? Because that sort of dictates how many hours of research can be done. Or is that not a fixed?
well, couple avenues, we have in our council budget room to hire a consultant. So
Okay.
if we started with the 5,000,
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, this will sounds okay to the committee members? If we started with the 5,000 and attempted to get you as much information as
Yeah.
could get compiled for you, so you didn't have to spend extra hours, like on the census tract breakdowns. Would the 5,000 be close to adequate? I have no idea. This is all new to me, so.
I don't know the answer to that because I guess the questions up there, or the categories of inquiry up there
Mhm.
it's almost easier for me if I had, instead of those 8 or 9 items, I had a list of, I'm just gonna make this up, the 25 charts from the Cuyahoga County study that you want replicated for Cleveland Heights. If I had that, then I can more say, okay, that's gonna take me this much time. It's hard for me to, this is just a little more generic looking at this.
Right, is it just a description of the analysis, and then when we look at this, we looked at all those pages when we were here the last time. I made notes on all the ones that we expressed interest in.
Could you send me
Yes, I'd be happy.
that maybe, and sorry that I didn't think to say, oh, could you send that in advance of the meeting? I guess that would have been, I didn't think of that, but it's still time to do this.
Yeah.
If you could,
Well, I think the best path to move forward with this is, clearly it's easier for you to figure out your rate based on work you've already done.
right.
And so, I think with Chairperson Larson's notes, you would be able to get back with us
Yes.
with the definitive amount.
I think so.
I don't like the idea of, spending $5,000 without really knowing what we're gonna get.
You're right.
And
No, you shouldn't.
then trying to figure out,
Yeah.
it's better for an all-in.
Yeah.
And even if the all-in has some kind of range to it, or some kind of scope check and balance where we're gonna give you half now, you'd come in with some kind of presentation, and then, the other half comes after that, but
Right.
make sure that you're on the right track.
You're right. And no matter, even if we roll back the discussion back to the 5,000, my assumption was neither one of us would want to just have an open-ended, well, I'll do $5,000 worth. It would still have to have
No.
associated with it a specific list of things that would be more specific than that.
Yeah, well, that's what I've got.
And so I think your notes from the previous discussion, if you could send that to me.
Okay,
And now, in that discussion, did we talk about low mod borrowers or low mod communities, or is that something?
I was gonna tell you, the scope of work that I have, we broke down in 3 parts, was housing trends, lending trends, and then We talked about lender-specific information.
Mm-hmm.
Then we went into identifying the geographies for the reporting purposes. That's what we broke down after that. And we talked about needing some case data from the last report. And then we swung back to Brian Iorio to get additional information about what was already provided. We also discussed the top 15 lenders doing business in Cleveland Heights and what that might look like.
And some of that I've already given you.
Mhm.
At least I've given you that for home purchase generally
Mhm.
and home repair generally, and then I
Yeah.
gave you specifically home purchase for African American borrowers.
Yeah.
I might have given you home repair for African American, I'm not sure if I did that too.
And we discussed what you
Yeah.
might have previously done with medium home prices in Cleveland Heights with a focus on Black borrowers. And what was the rejection rate? We discussed that too for loans in Cleveland Heights to see if you had any reporting on that. That was the last thing we.
Yeah, so in the last thing you said, there were two things that got mixed there with those median home sale price and rejection rates for Black borrowers. Did you mean those to be connected?
We discussed them separately.
Right,
Yep, it's what you had in general for median home prices in Cleveland Heights.
and I did provide that.
Yep.
Okay.
And then we were looking to see if you had anything specifically for the focus on Black borrowers in that area.
So I have done some analysis of rejection rates, not for Cleveland Heights borrowers specifically, but I do think that's doable because I think I have that set up that I can do that. So that, if you don't already have that on your list, why don't you add that? Or some reference that'll help me remember
Yeah.
to think about that.
But that's really important. I mean,
Okay,
and then when you do that, do you get information about as to why they were rejected, or is it
well,
just a flat
there are reasons for rejection. I have not done an analysis and any of it's been available for all 7 years that I've done this work. I have not done an analysis for that during any of the 7 years. And it's just because I've made a choice. There's so much. 5 of those 7 years, there wasn't even any contractor grant.
Sure.
I just did it because I thought it was important. And in the last 2 years, there was so much already expected that I had to draw the line somewhere.
Yeah.
But, so if you wanna make a note of
Yep.
and saying something about reason for rejection, the data's there.
There is broad data on that, though. That is something that's clear across the spectrum in terms of people of color. There's usually a top set of reasons. The first isn't your credit score, believe it or not. It's everything that falls in after that. So typically, an African American borrower will go in with the credit score. It's the paperwork that's the issue. It's the financial information, returning that, understanding that. It's the records, the tax information that's required. It's that education piece. And so we spend a lot of time in industries and with nonprofits really just pouring over that piece because they're typically on paper, they qualify with that credit score. But when you start asking for the paperwork, that's when you start to see this fall apart. So you'll notice that there's this uptick where you've got these pre-approvals until we start requesting paperwork. And that's when folks really haven't had that in place. So it goes back to a lot of other financial literacy issues we have because you'll have situations where someone has a 700 credit score, but believe it or not, they've never had a checking account. So there's no accounting of their financials in a way that they can get a mortgage. And so we're working backwards in some cases with that, but those are some of the reasons why. And then in other cases, it's the home itself. There's issues with the home that they want to purchase or the area, the location. In some cases, there are just some banks that just do not want to lend in those areas to those homes just based on what else is happening in the industry. So you're seeing that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Was I good? All right. So,
Oh, I know what I was gonna say. Do the three of you have an agreement on the scope of work?
we're trying to finalize it today.
Okay, I just wasn't sure if that was, some part of the discussion that preceded this.
Yeah, if it's okay with the committee members, and I provide the list of the items we talked about, because Councilor Pasha went through this whole report, all 100+ pages. We looked at graphs and we talked about the ones that we thought would give us information that we would like to have. And so that's a list that I'm talking about to give to Frank,
Mhm.
so that he knows what inquiries we're interested in.
Oh, that's certainly okay with me. I mean, I'm in good company. You guys know what you're doing. So,
Okay. I still wanna go back to,
Yes, go ahead.
do you, if you wanna analyze by census tract and or income or low mod, what information would we need to
So-
get to you?
Okay, I'm thinking, here. We're talking, I think we had discussed the fact that the most recent research I did, most recent research for the Cuyahoga County was for 2022 data. And for those who might not have heard this before, the data is always a year behind by the time the federal government releases it. So at the time that I started this, 2023 data wasn't even available. 2023 data became available, it was probably three months ago, 4 months ago. And I was already wrapping up the 2022 study. There was no way I was gonna start over again. But for this, it makes sense probably to start with the 2023 data.
Okay.
2024 data is not gonna be available till at the earliest June probably, and in the past it was more like September. But under the current administration, it's actually a little side thing, if anybody's interested, that the current administration has been moving that up, which is good to get it earlier. But so, and of course I went off on a tangent.
We were talking about census tract
Yeah, thank you.
information and
So one thing to consider is we would want to be using the US Census median family income for the ACS American Community Survey 2023. If we can get it, if not, 2022 would be okay, but I don't. So even if 2024 was somehow, I don't even know if that's out yet, so maybe this is a moot point. Who in the do you have the planning department would do this for you, do you think? Or who would help you?
I can speak to Brian, he does a lot of analysis, I can put a query into him and see if there's something that he can get for us.
So the other way to approach this is I could reach out to Case Western Reserve and ask them, would they be willing as a favor to me and to you, would they be willing to identify, right, here's the things. First, identify what are the low mod census tracts in Cleveland Heights. Second would they be willing to take the same home mortgage lending data that they provided to me? Would they take that data, and it's a big spreadsheet, with columns left to right, would they add a column with a number one, like a flag is what they would call it, one next to every record that's Cleveland Heights low mod census tracts? They might do that.
So do you want me to put that in my email
Yes,
to
could you add that? Please do that. But I will ask them, and they might, it's probably gonna depend on, is this something that they have more technical sophistication than I do.
Okay.
This is something they may be able to do, I'm gonna just make this up, 15 minutes. They may be able to do it quickly. Me, it could be 10 hours by the time I think I can eventually do it, but they may have programs already, customized programs for manipulating the data, yeah.
I mean, do you have the data, do you have both pieces of data? If you just,
What I have is imagine a big Excel spreadsheet, left to right, probably 100 columns left to right. And I'm gonna guess it's probably 50,000 records for all of Cuyahoga County, loan records.
right,
Loan applications, they didn't all become loans. So those are applications, and all the things across the top are various things that indicate some characteristic of that. And one of them is going to be census tract, and another is going to be income. So it is possible to link both the income and the census tract to identify which are the census tracts that fall within the low mod definition, HUD's low mod definition of what is low mod income for a family, median family income. It's generally 80% or less of the median income.
So it's just a calculation you do in the
It's a
sheet or?
calculation, but see, Case Western may already have the ability to do this already set up somehow. And even if they didn't, they've got incredible capability, that they may be able to just set this up quickly.
So we'll go that direction.
Yeah,
Um,
you remind me and I will ask them. And actually, I think the advantage of this is, from my perspective, my self-interest is not merely that this could be done for you, but the next time I do this research for Cuyahoga County, I can do this easier. Yeah.
So if you can't get it from Case, would the committee mind if I spent 15-20 minutes with you looking at the data?
Yeah, no, we could.
Be able to have a quick way of getting
Yeah,
this?
I mean, we'd have to start still with, we'd either have to start with Case identifying the low mod census tracts, or somebody internally to the county is gonna have to identify what are those census tracts in Cleveland Heights that would qualify to be defined as median family income that's low mod. I think low is generally 50% below median and moderate's 80%. This isn't off the top of my head. So 80% is really what you're looking for.
I'm okay with that. Councilor Maddox, you're okay with that?
And I'm pulling up something, I'm sorry, I thought Case, you still got me caught on something, but I'm fine with that.
All right, okay. It sounds like we'll need to have at least one more meeting on this, so we'll do that work in between and getting the next meeting scheduled. I do have one more item. President Kuda and I met via Zoom with Jennifer Kuzma of the First Suburbs Consortium and Seth Reimer of Stanford Road Advisors. And Seth indicated that he could help identify bank lending programs available in our area. He'd like to approach, he suggested approaching the identified banks to start building relationships that will help us offer educational services to our residents. If we used his services, he'd be hired as a consultant. We could use council budgeted funds with this expenditure if we went through all necessary approvals, and my question is if we would need to create an RFQ. But Councilor Maddox, with the connections and the experience that you have with the bank industry, would you be willing to put together a list of these available lending programs that we could possibly begin to
Yeah, I had on my list
elevate?
that one of the things I wanted to add to that is not just the ones from the financial institutions, but the other are nonprofits and organizations that back those up, because in many cases they use those. So I do have that down. I was gonna offer it.
So can you do that by the time we get together the next time?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. So that answers our question. That's great.
And that seems like the right thing to do. I mean, the mayor was the person that suggested
Yeah.
this, which, he's got as many connections to the county as anybody.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But, and that meeting I thought was, he showed competence on the issues.
Yeah. Director Schuster, are you able to tell us which banks we currently use?
Yeah, US Bank, Fifth Third, and Star, Ohio.
Star Ohio?
It's more of an investment vehicle, isn't it?
Thank you. I think this gives us a lot of information that we can all work on and work towards the next meeting, if you're willing to
Yeah.
meet with us at least one
Oh,
more
yeah.
time.
Yes.
Probably might not be, it depends on what happens in November. But knowing that we have a budget within the fair housing contract, it gives us something to work with in 2025. So I'm not feeling like we're up against any timelines that
No.
will put extra pressure on us. It's just when we can all get together again. Yeah. All right, so are you both okay with where we're at right now on this subject? All right.
Can I just, the three lenders or financial institutions, Star and US Bank and Fifth Third. And Star, I don't believe reports any data to the federal government that would be in the data. So that may not be that big of, have that much consequence for you, but I don't believe I've seen their name. I could double check that.
It's more
Yeah,
of an
and what they-
investment, but we still pay
Yeah,
them.
it would be inconsequential that data.
Okay,
Yeah.
This report.
but Fifth Third and US Bank were probably in, you
Yeah.
probably have already some indication of them from what I already gave you.
Yeah.
Yes, you do, we do.
Okay,
So, I do not have anything for the good of the order or anybody else.
Are you moving on to the next item, or was that also,
That was what we were just talking about.
I have before another I'd like to talk about.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'm really, as many of you know, I was out of town for the last 2 weeks, and I was really looking forward to being, part of the budget committee meetings. I had asked certain members of staff to let me know when these meetings were, because I can't get my email when I'm out of town. So the 3 days that were picked for these budget hearings, I'm unavailable. And I'm pretty darn salty about it, but it's not me. I'm not asking for anybody to certainly make any changes. But I would like to make sure when we go into next year, that as part of our regular schedule, we know months in advance when our meetings are gonna be for these budgets, because that's probably one of the most influential meetings the city council can have. Not asking anybody to just, they could be in November, yeah, I'd like them earlier, but I'd like to know what dates so we can get it in our calendars. Some of us have day jobs that have a lot of responsibility, and when you make commitments, you can't. And I know some of my peers have to take time off for some of these meetings, and that's unfair. And I also think it's unfair for the public that they happen during the day. I am just asking that we can put something together that, hey, these are the 3 or 4 dates that we have in advance, and we know months in advance when they're gonna be. So everybody can plan ahead. And I don't know if we need to legislate that. I don't know if it's even a priority for everybody in this room, but for me, it's a priority.
So Tara Schuster was kind enough to give us a layout of schedule of a few months ago. And I know that Addie was trying to schedule them for many, many weeks before they actually got scheduled. But at the end of the day, until the mayor and the staff can say, we're ready for these days, we can't schedule anything, because this is 2 branches of government, and a lot of moving parts. I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying, I don't know that this can be done another way. And then, under these particular circumstances, having, short staff in the finance department and so forth, I just don't know.
So you make the dates as late as possible. These are pretty late dates, but at least the dates are out there.
Yeah, no, I see that, and I don't understand some of the reasons for, you not being able to get your emails. That's over my pay grade.
That's a whole nother, it's happened before,
But
we could go over that. That is really an immaterial.
well, it is and it isn't. I guess what you're saying is, if you would have been able to get these emails, you would not have scheduled, I don't know, if maybe you wouldn't have scheduled.
Of course I wouldn't have. I would have been at this meeting. It's probably probably some of the most important meetings that you would be, and it happens to be 3 days out of town. I can't even attend on Zoom. Now, that's my personal problem, but the issue is,
No, it's
if the email system was working, yeah. But also just, I think, setting some expectation of, we're gonna do these dates in November, and you can do it eight months in advance, 6 months in advance, so everybody knows in advance. And working, I don't feel it's proper for, sometimes council in a vacuum dictating this. It needs to be worked out with the administration and staff, collaboratively. But you need some advance notice, much more than we have gotten, in my opinion. So,
I understand. it's a legitimate,
So just a great,
no, it's,
But I think it adding to the complexity is having staff available, so,
well, it's,
yeah.
yeah, but if everybody knew
right,
6 months in advance, these are dates where on the 21st of November, the planning department is gonna be doing their thing. 6 months in advance
Okay,
or whenever.
right. Councilor Maddox, did you have anything? All right, I'm gonna adjourn this meeting and it is really 5:36 and not. Go back.
Yeah.
That one on the bottom.
digital.
And thank you all for your help this afternoon. I appreciate it very much. Thank you for attending, Tara.
Thank you.